Hey guys, it's Verny here. Just wanted to make a quick video on some of the Mythic Plus changes that have happened on the beginning of week 2. So we'll just go ahead and get right into them. These are on Wowhead, obviously. I can link them in the description. So for Siege of Borealis, Irontide Raider health reduced by 15%. Pretty substantial. The Raider has a lot of health. If you don't have a funnel class, he is going to be the last mob alive at the end of every single pack that he's in. He's extremely annoying. He's got an AoE shout, I think, that interrupts as well as does a bunch of damage. Plus, he has the AoE hook where he hooks all your party members in. It also does a bunch of damage. And then he does a swirly, which you have to dodge. So less health on that, perfect. Bildrat Buccaneer health reduced by 10%. I can't say I know what mob this is, but 10% is a welcome addition. Irontide Wave Shaper health reduced by 20%. These cast water bolts as well as water shield. The water shield is particularly annoying, but with fortified, the bolts also need to be kicked, so less health on that is nice. Ashvane Sniper health reduced by 10%. Scrimshaw Enforcer health reduced by 20%. So they're just kicking down a bunch of the high HP mobs. That's perfect. I mean, less time spent on trash is great. Bildrat Tempest Choking Waters cast time increased. This is a silence. It is kickable. I don't know how long the cast is. It's probably 2 seconds, so now it's longer, which is great. Irontide Raider's Iron Hook ability cooldown increased, and Irontide Raider's Iron Hook maximum range decreased. These are both good. I wonder if this means you can outrange it. They didn't give a number on it. Previously, it pulls the entire group in and does a bunch of damage, and then he does his AoE, and you have to get out of it within 2 seconds or you die. But also the ability cooldown increased. Very nice. The forced displacements are extremely annoying in these dungeons. I think every single dungeon has a knockback or a hook, and it is, as a caster, and especially as a healer, it is really irritating. So glad to see less of this. Bildrat Demolisher Crushing Slam damage ignores armor, and its damage has been reduced by 40%. Oh, that's nice. Those are the big ogre mobs in the after the second boss, between the second and the third boss. They do a Crushing Slam, which does group damage. I don't believe it can be outranged. It does a lot of damage. It was doing like 85% of my health last week on a 10. So less damage on that is great. Ignores armor just means it's going to be the same across the board. Bildrat Demolisher health reduced by 10%. Okay, less HP on it. Great. So these are some great trash changes. I kind of wish they would remove the Iron Hook ability altogether. I'm trying to think, is there any more really problematic trash in Siege? Gotta say no. I feel like they've done a pretty good job of tuning these down. These are good changes. Hadal Darkfathom. This is the third boss. The giant health reduced by 5%. I didn't think he was particularly oppressive, but sure, 5% health is great. Vikoth. This is the last boss. Demolishing Terror Slam no longer knocks players back. Thank you, Jesus. This is, as a healer, I think it was doing it every 10 to 15 seconds, and it was extremely irritating between getting knocked back, dodging the swirls, and spreading for the AoE, while also healing the two targets, getting the dispel. Extremely hard. Not a fan. So, no longer knocking back players is amazing. Fucking sick change, Blizzard. Thank you. Now ignores armor. Okay, so the damage is normalized. Sure. Fixed an issue that caused the area effect when dispelling putrid waters to not scale. I'm guessing that meant it didn't do the appropriate damage if you were stacked within the dispel circle in the last boss. You're meant to soft spread for those. They come out every 15 to 20 seconds. There's 2 debuffs, so the healer should pretty much instantly dispel one and then top the other person off, and then when dispel is back off a CD, you dispel the other person. And you need to spread because if you're within the AoE and you get dispelled, it's going to do a bunch of damage. Developers notes the intent of these changes is to balance the overall length of the dungeon against the timer, while rewarding players for prioritizing high-threat enemies. The adjustments to Vikoth aim to even out damage across all armor types and eliminate a frustrating aspect of the encounter. Yeah, I mean, with the notes, they nailed it. That's awesome. Great change, Blizzard. Grim Batol. Ooh. Another really difficult one. I did a couple 10s on this last week. Obviously did not time them. Even a 9 was a decent challenge to time with a coordinated group. A pug? I can't imagine. This is a tough dungeon. Twilight Warlocks enveloping Shadowflame now targets one player, was 2. Amazing. That is another amazing change. The Warlocks, they cast, I think, Shadow Flame bolts, which can be kicked, and then this enveloping Shadow Flame is a very large heal absorb. I mean, it's like 80% of your HP pool. It's probably like 4 million on a 10. It's crazy big, and it was putting it out on 2 players per cast. And some of the packs have 2 or 3 Warlocks in them. I think you were skipping packs that had more than 2 Warlocks because they were just too oppressive without a decurse. So this kind of reduces the need for a decurse, and it probably means that a healer can power through it much more easily than before. Because if they stacked 2 on you at once, because you could get more than 1 debuff from separate Warlocks, then that's like an 8 to 10 million health deficit, and it does ticking damage while on you, so it's tough to recover from that. So that's a good change. Mutated Hatchling's Shadow Wound increases shadow damage taken by 3% per application, was 5. Um, Okay, sure. These are the whelplings at the end of the dungeon. There's a couple packs with some large faceless mobs who do a big channeled cast. They pick a player and mind flay them basically. It does a ridiculous amount of shadow damage. And the trick is that the hatchlings increase shadow damage taken, so people run in and they AoE all the whelps because they want to pad and do as much damage as possible. But then you get these huge shadow increase, like damage taken debuffs on you. And then when you get mind flayed, you die. So, less damage. Sure, it's less punishing. Faceless Corruptor's Corrupt cast time increased and damage reduced. Okay, so not Mind Flay, I'm sorry, Corrupt. That's the exact name of the spell. It's essentially a Mind Flay. He picks a player, he casts a beam on them and does a bunch of damage. Cast time increased and damage reduced by 10%. Great. Great change. Before, I think it was a 1 second cast, and it was pretty difficult to react in time as a healer. DPS, if you didn't hit a cooldown and you had a bunch of the Shadow Wound debuffs on you, you were going to die in about 2 seconds. It does an extreme amount of damage. Twilight Destroyer's Twilight Ember area denial no longer inflicts damage instantly when stepping into the area. Oh, sweet. Those are the drakes that drop the fire patches. It places it on a player, and then he ticks like every 2 seconds, and then every 2 seconds it drops a patch of Shadow Flame. No longer dealing damage instantly. Great, because there were some spots where space is really constrained, and you're trying to, go on this really tight corridor. And if you pull the dragon there, you're gonna have that ember, like the patches, just all over the ground. It's sometimes hard to walk through. So that's nice that walking through it won't instantly tick you. Erudax is the last boss. Ridiculously hard last week on a 10 with our current gear. Let's see what changes we got. Reduced visual scale of Erudax to improve visibility. That's great because he was gigantic. Very hard to see the tentacles. If you walk into a tentacle, you get stunned, and you will likely die. So, great change. We want to see him smaller so we can actually see more of the room. Players afflicted with Depth's Grasp have a brief immunity to void tendrils upon expiration. I think Depth's Grasp is the debuff that comes in the middle of the Shadow Storm. So you're all stacked in this tiny circle, and then you get 3 small AoE circles, and so you need to like lightly pre-spread in this very constricted area. Brief immunity to void tendrils upon expiration. So I'm guessing that means that you won't get stunned if you have the debuff. I mean, that's a nice change. It makes it less required because before you needed like an immunity or like a bubble or an AMS or deep breath supposedly could do it where you could clear the tentacles. But now with this, it sounds like you can just kind of spread a little bit and you'll be okay. Improve visibility of void tendrils. Again, great change. Purple on purple, sometimes tough to see, so we like stuff like this to better allow players to see things. Mist of Tyrannus Scythe, probably the easiest dungeon, by the way. Mist of Tyrannus Scythe and Dawnbreaker, extremely forgiving. It was the only one I was able to time last week was a Mists. So, improve visibility of the Vulpin, summoned by Freeze Tag. That's a second boss. It summons a fox that follows. It fixates on a player and follows them, and if it hits them, it explodes for AoE frost damage and freezes them for like 5 seconds. It's pretty deadly. It'll one-shot you in hierarchies for sure. And so improving the visibility, great. Yeah, it's like a weird blue spectral, Arden Wheeled Fox on a blue ground. So tough to see sometimes. It's good to have better visibility. Range of Patty Cake has been increased. That's just the tank buster. The tank has to kick it. No one else can get it. I assume there's some weird scenario where tanks were able to get out of range of that, and it's probably not intended, so I would guess that's what that change is for. So, yeah, great. Necrotic Wake addressed an issue where players can be targeted by affixes while on their way back to the top platform during Nalthor the Rhymebinder. This is the last boss, the Lich. He sends a player down to a little hallway. They have to run and dodge some swirlies, kill a mob at the end, and then they get ported back up. They obviously should not be targeted by affixes while down there. So, good change. Stone Vault, another very tough one. The healing requirement on some of these bosses was pretty crazy. So you needed good group coordination with killing the shards on the second boss, and then on this duo here, getting ranged kick on the one machinist when he jumps away, because it does a bunch of damage and it slows. So ability timing has been adjusted to prevent a potentially unfair overlap between exhaust vents and blazing crescendo. Oh, amazing, amazing change. There's one overlap there that was it was pretty much lethal every time in high keys. I don't know how you could avoid it without blowing every single cooldown on your kit. So that's great. Adjusting. I wonder if that moves any other spells significantly during that fight. Molten Metal cast time increased to 3 seconds, was 2 seconds. This is the not the mob in the mech. It's the lone earthen. He casts this like every 10 seconds. It needs a kick rotation. It does a bunch of damage and it slows you. It's pretty deadly. You pretty much need to kick it every time or you will die, especially in that middle phase where you're trying to get to the vents. Silent Speaker now inflicts damage every 3 seconds. Was every 1.5 seconds. What is Silent Speaker? Hold on. We're going to the Dungeon Journal real quick. Silent Speaker. I feel like I know most mechanics, but... Or is that a trash mob? Oh, here it is. Oh, okay, so if you kill them early, then the remaining speaker pulses for a ridiculous amount of damage. So it looks like that is now going to tick every 3 seconds instead of 1.5. That's great, because if you killed them early, you died. It was instant death. You could not survive it. Anyway, is that all the change? I thought there was some more. Let me just quickly glance, make sure I'm not missing anything. I thought there was a couple more. That might be it. Oh, yeah, there's 2 hot fixes that are not yet live but are planning to be dropped. The first boss of Siege, I'm jumping around a little bit because the Wowhead posts aren't consolidated yet. They're still separate posts. So no longer faces players during mass bombardment. This is just when the bombs drop. Okay, whatever. Clear the deck now has a cast visual. That's a nice change. Clear the deck was a frontal. If you were standing on top of the tank and not paying attention, and she cast clear the deck, you died. So having any kind of visual for you to dodge is perfect. But I think that's all the changes we've got here. So yeah, these will be live. I guess I could briefly just look any more problem points. They did nerf City of Threads last week as well. They nerfed the last boss. The third boss is still pretty challenging with the healing absorbs. Arakara is another pretty easy one. The last boss can do kind of a lot of damage if you don't have poison dispels. But otherwise, just take it slow, run out, dispel yourself, find a good spot to get rooted in. First boss is not that bad. Dawnbreaker's pretty easy. Mist is pretty easy. Necrotic Wake, Stitchflesh did get nerfed. I honestly feel like they should nerf him again or change how things work. Currently, if you wipe and you blow Lust and all your spears and all your weapons into Stitchflesh, it is very tough to recover. We did it last week, and we ended up having to phase him over 4 abominations, and basically we had to focus the abomination all the way until he jumped down, and then we could kill him. But it was rough. So I think that one should be revisited. But the Siege and Grim Batol changes are amazing, so A+ Blizzard, keep it up. But anyway, it's going to be all from me. Feel free to come tune in, twitch.tv/veronyx. Be doing mostly healing content. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.